Welcome to Seductive Chronicles. In today's video, we explore a quiet unraveling, a subtle awakening, and the kind of connection that arrives not with a bang but with a breath, a whisper that lingers. This is a story about rediscovery, about two women who meet not at the beginning of their lives but somewhere in the middle where the silence is loudest and the truths most tender. I've spent nearly 30 years in human resources, 2 decades of those years quietly unfolding in the corner offices of mid-sized firms scattered around Ohio. Most recently, I worked at a marketing company in Columbus, a place known more for its seasonal potlucks and conservative structure than any disruptive brilliance. And that was fine by me. I've never been one to chase the spotlight or stir the waters unnecessarily. I was the type of woman who made things run smoothly behind the scenes. I kept my voice calm, my skirts below the knee, my tone measured. Life had taught me early that consistency, silence, and competence, when stitched tightly together, could grant you a kind of invisible armor. I wore it every day. I wore it well. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have possibly known, was how quickly everything could shift. How in a single evening your heart could be reminded that it still beats for more than habit and ritual. That's what happened the night Danielle invited me to her home. Danielle, she was something else entirely. She was in her early 40s, confident without being abrasive, sharp without being cold. There was something impossibly elegant about her, the way she moved, the way she dressed, the ease with which she seemed to carry her thoughts. She had this almost cinematic quality, as if she belonged in another era, a woman who could turn heads without ever intending to. And then there was me. 2 decades her senior. A widow. A woman who knew how to manage an office full of difficult personalities but hadn't been really touched in almost a decade. I never saw myself as someone people gravitated toward. But over the past year, Danielle and I had struck an unexpected chord. It began with casual conversations in the break room, comments on bad coffee, awkward small talk about weekend plans. But somehow those conversations deepened. We began swapping book recommendations, laughing at inside jokes, offering quiet sympathy when the day grew heavy. There was no agenda, just a slow, steady kindling. So when Danielle appeared at my office door that Thursday afternoon, I didn't think much of it at first. Her voice was calm, casual. "I'd love your input on something," she said. "Could you come by my place this weekend? Saturday evening, maybe?" I blinked, caught off guard by the invitation. "Sure. Is it about work?" She smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't give anything away. "In a way," she said, "I think you'll understand what I'm trying to figure out." In a way, Agnes should have raised a flag. But instead, it piqued my curiosity. Saturday arrived under a sky painted in winter's softest blue. The kind of evening that made everything feel a bit slower, a bit quieter. I parked outside her house, a beautifully restored craftsman ivy climbing up one side, windows glowing warmly from inside. And yet, for a long minute, I just sat there, my hands on the steering wheel, my heart fluttering in a way I couldn't quite explain. Before I could even knock, Danielle opened the door. It startled me, but she just smiled, barefoot on the hardwood, wearing a maroon sweater and black slacks. She looked comfortable in her skin, something I envied deeply. "You look wonderful," she said. I offered a small, nervous laugh. "Thanks, I just threw something on." "No," she said gently, her eyes lingering on mine. "You look peaceful. Like someone who knows exactly who she is." That comment, so unexpected, so intentional, lodged itself somewhere inside me. We settled in her living room, warm with lamplight and scented with mulled wine and sandalwood. She poured us each a glass, and we curled into opposite ends of the couch like old friends catching up. Conversation came easily about the office, her recent kitchen remodel, my attempt at winter gardening. But then something shifted. Her voice softened. "Can I ask you something personal?" I nodded, unsure. Have you ever realized you've been living a version of your life that doesn't really belong to you? That you followed all the right steps but never stopped to ask if they were your steps? I stared at my wine glass. The red shimmered under the light like something alive. I think I've spent most of my life coloring inside the lines, I said slowly. No surprises, no mess. Danielle nodded. And lately? Lately? I've been wondering what I missed by never straying outside them. There was a silence then. Not awkward, not tense, just full, like a pause that had been waiting for years. She reached out, gently touched my hand. It wasn't bold. It wasn't anything more than grounding. A gesture of human warmth. You've always seemed so composed, she said. But I see something in you. Something still alive. Like there's a version of you waiting to be discovered. Her words didn't stir desire, not exactly. It was more like recognition. Like someone had seen the map of my soul and pointed to the part I'd forgotten how to read. I found myself opening up. Really opening. I told her about Mark, my husband who died 8 years ago, about the silence in the evenings, the ache of routine, the small heartbreak of grocery store trips done only to hear another human voice. And she listened, not politely, not like someone waiting for their turn to speak. She listened with her whole being. Then she said something I'll never forget. You haven't disappeared, Karen. You've just been waiting for someone to really look. I swallowed hard. Tears pricked behind my eyes, because I hadn't been seen in years. Not as a manager, not as a mother, not as a widow, as a woman. The night stretched long. We finished the wine. Still, neither of us wanted to move. There was something sacred about that space. Something unspoken but real. Eventually, I stood to leave. She walked me to the door. Her fingers brushed my arm. Thank you for trusting me, she said. I paused. Thank you for inviting me. I didn't know how much I needed this. I drove home under quiet streetlights, something shifting inside me. Not loudly, but irrevocably. At work, the following week passed with a quiet hum between us. Not awkward, not strange. Just different. Like we were carrying something delicate and precious between us, shielding it from the fluorescent lights and conference calls. Different. Like we were carrying something delicate and precious between us, shielding it from the fluorescent lights and conference calls. Then, on Friday morning, as I was finishing my second cup of coffee in the break room, Danielle walked in. She smiled. Doing anything this weekend? Just laundry, I said with a soft laugh. Maybe cleaning the garage. Exciting, she teased. Want to come by again? I made a stew recipe I want you to try. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I did, and I was beginning to understand how deep this river might run. Still, I said yes. Saturday arrived again, this time cloaked in anticipation. I brought wine. Wore a green sweater that made my hazel eyes stand out. Told myself it was just thoughtful, not intentional. Danielle greeted me barefoot again, this time in soft jeans and a loose white shirt. Her home smelled like rosemary and garlic, nurturing, earthy, safe. Dinner was light-hearted. We laughed about terrible dates, weird office gossip, music from the 70s. My shoulders felt lighter. I laughed like I hadn't in years. After dinner, we migrated to the couch. This time, we sat closer. Our knees nearly touched. Neither of us moved away. You seem different tonight, Danielle said. Different how? Lighter, more open. I shrugged. Maybe I just feel safe. Her eyes met mine, and then she reached for my hand. This time she didn't let go. You don't have to explain anything, she said. I just want you to know I see you, and I like what I see. My heart thudded. I looked away, not from shame, from overwhelm. I think I've spent most of my life waiting for permission, I said quietly. To want something, to feel. She said nothing, just leaned her head gently against my shoulder. And we sat like that, still, breathing, real. The crackling of the fire filled the room like a blanket. I could feel her breath slow, steady. Mine followed. And in that silence, where nothing was asked but everything was said, I realized how long I'd gone without stillness. Real stillness. Not just the absence of noise, but the presence of peace. She spoke again. A confession dressed as vulnerability. I invited you over last week because I needed someone who wouldn't judge me. Someone who understands the value of quiet truths. I turned toward her slowly. What do you mean? Danielle shifted, tucking her legs underneath her on the couch. Her voice was steady but laced with hesitation, as if she were letting something long held finally rise to the surface. I've always been drawn to women who carry stories in their silence, she said. Women who've lived. And I've spent so long pretending that those feelings didn't mean anything, pretending it was just admiration. But when I talk to you, Karen, I feel like I can finally be honest. Something in me, some old shell, cracked. Not because I was shocked, but because I understood. Deeply. I think I've been waiting for that too, I said quietly. Waiting for someone to give me permission, or maybe just a safe place to put all the things I've kept inside. She looked at me, not as a younger woman looking at someone older, not with pity or intrigue. She looked at me as an equal, as someone she saw. And for the first time in years, I felt just like that, not a widow, not a department head, not a woman defined by grief or age or absence. Just me. There was no kiss, no swelling soundtrack, just two women sitting in a soft room filled with shared honesty. When I left that night, the air outside was cold and cutting, the sky dim with the hush of approaching snow. But something in me had begun to thaw. Not just the loneliness, but the parts of myself I had buried under years of practicality and loss. I didn't know what was happening between Danielle and me, but I knew it mattered, and I knew I was ready to see where it might go. The days that followed carried a strange sort of anticipation, the kind that blooms after a dream that lingers all morning. I found myself glancing down the hallway more often, pausing before deleting her emails, rereading her texts, each one polite, professional, but tinged with something unspoken. There were no declarations, no whispers behind office doors, but between us there was a frequency only we could hear, a gentle static that hummed beneath the ordinary. Her eyes held something softer now. So did mine. That Friday, we passed each other near the elevator. She stopped, looked at me. Come by tomorrow, she said. Looked at me, no explanation, no context. But I didn't need it. I nodded. Saturday came wrapped in soft rain, the kind that blurs the edges of the world. I stood in front of my mirror longer than usual. I wore a navy blouse and silver earrings, not for her exactly, but for the version of myself that had been sleeping. When I arrived, Danielle was in the kitchen, her hair tied back, sleeves rolled. She looked up and smiled, not wide or theatrical, just soft, real. I made tea, she said. I thought we could sit on the sun porch. Rain sounds beautiful out there. The porch was glass-lined, warm with the scent of jasmine candles and rain-soaked earth. Cushions lined the floor, a soft throw hung over the back of a worn chair. It felt like a place out of time, a pocket of stillness untouched by noise or expectation. We settled onto the cushions, tea in hand, rain humming like a lullaby. I've been thinking about what you said, Danielle began, about waiting your whole life for permission. That stayed with me. I nodded slowly. It's strange how we do that, isn't it? How we silence ourselves because it feels safer. She looked at me. Her voice was quieter now. I grew up hiding parts of myself. Not because anyone told me to, but because I was afraid they wouldn't understand. And that fear, it doesn't leave just because you grow up. I felt her words like a mirror. I hid after Mark died, I admitted. Not intentionally. Not intentionally. Just little by little. I stopped going to dinner parties. I stopped calling friends. I stopped asking myself what I wanted. I just became quieter. She reached out, our hands finding each other again. You don't have to be quiet with me, she said. Not here. The tears came not with drama but with ease. And I didn't hide them. We talked for hours. About invisible grief. About being admired but not known. About being admired but not known. About the hollowness of holidays filled with smiles that didn't reach the heart. And she told me her truths too, about the woman she loved in college, Elena, the one she never brought home, the one she let go because fear won. Eventually, the tea grew cold, and the rain slowed. But neither of us moved. Danielle reached behind her and pulled out a small photo album from a low shelf. I want to show you something, she said. Inside were old photographs, faded, warm, full of memory. She stopped on one, two young women smiling under a summer sun, arms slung around each other, eyes lit by something unspoken. Elena, she whispered. She was the first person who saw me, and I let her go. I looked at her, not with judgment, not with pity, just understanding. I don't want to live like that anymore, she said. Hiding. Holding back. I placed my hand over hers. You're not the only one ready for something more. We didn't kiss that night. But the moment had weight. Like a promise neither of us said aloud, but both of us believed. The following weeks unfolded gently, like a journal being written in real time. We didn't rush. We didn't label. We simply were. Some evenings we walked through the local arboretum, our hands grazing, never quite holding, but always close enough. Other times we cooked together, burned garlic bread, danced to old records. We laughed. A lot. We cried sometimes too. Danielle was younger than me by nearly 2 decades. But it never felt like that mattered. We were both carrying stories. Both unraveling slowly into a kind of grace we hadn't realized we deserved. One evening, as spring pushed its fingers into winter's fading chill, Danielle invited me over again. I'd spent the morning pruning my garden. The scent of lilac clung to my sweater. She met me at the door, glasses of white wine in hand. I want to ask you something, she said, leading me to the porch. Candles flickered around us, simple tea lights that made the room glow like dusk from a dream. She sat, her expression unreadable. I've been thinking, she said, about us, and how unexpected this has all been. I nodded, my heart a slow, steady thud. I guess I just want to know if we is something you want to keep exploring. No pressure, no labels, just honesty. The air grew still. My voice didn't shake. Yes, I said. Not because it's easy. Because I've never felt more like myself than I do when I'm with you. She reached across the small table, her hand in mine. Not electric, but grounding. Not electric, but grounding. Like I was arriving home to myself. We didn't need to define what we were. We just let it grow. A relationship without urgency, without rules, just presence, just truth. At work we remained as we'd always been, respectful, professional. But underneath we carried a new softness, a new knowing. People noticed. They told me I looked lighter, more rested. That something had shifted. They were right. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the women's lounge mirror. For the first time in years, I really saw myself. Not just the fine lines or silver strands, but the woman I'd become. A woman who had dared to feel again, to step outside the lines, to let something unfamiliar but beautiful unfold. As I left the lounge, I passed Danielle in the hallway. She smiled. That same soft smile, the one that started it all. And I smiled back, this time without fear. Because no matter what came next, more nights wrapped in porch light or quiet chapters yet to be written, I was ready. Not because of her, but because of me. Because I had said yes to truth, to presence, to being seen. And maybe, just maybe, to love in a form I had never dared to imagine. Thank you for watching Seductive Chronicles. If this story stirred something in you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder it's never too late to feel alive again.